Graeme hasn't even managed to get a bait in the water
I couldn't even get
and
it.
I've got my first fish on.
Yeah. Wow, that's a nice one.
Fish, yeah. So we've had plenty of fish, and you know, just a couple of hours fishing, really.
Oh dear, oh dear. Oh dear. It's daylight. It is at least daylight. Oh man, 72. What am I doing this at my time of life? As you can see, I have luxury accommodation here. Sleeping in the back of the car. This is what you do if you want to catch some fish. I'm down here in Somserset. It's cold. I was cold during the night. I'm going to get up now. I've even got a builder's portaloo just in front of my bonnet there. So I've had a little crack in the window, and I've been radiating some perfumery that's been coming through. But it is what it is. I don't know what it is, 6:30, something like that. So I might as well get up. I'm going fishing, wait for this, with Tomo. And I've already been fishing down here at Lovelinch Lake. Grab a few hours sleep in the car. I've been catching carp, been catching tench. And I'm going to be going and hopefully catching something else, but the weather's not good. So let's get up, let's have some breakfast. Oh dear. See if I can actually extract myself from this vehicle. Exit the vehicle, sir. And I'm going to be on the road to the next place I'm filming. Don't know anybody else who puts in the time I do. Right, let's get going. So we're down aboard Tomo's boat, the Lorna Doone here. If you want some fishing that's close to shore, fingers crossed we get plenty of fish today, then give Tomo a shout. Lovely big boat, plenty of space, toilet, well run, life jackets, all the usual stuff, nice seating, nice bit of space at the back, rod holders all the way up. You've seen them on the films before. And we're going out, we're just going to give what they call an over the tide trip. Just a quick one, about 4 hours I think we get. So you're going to go out, the tide comes in, obviously it dries out here. Dive out quick, very close to shore, I'm going to say within a mile or something like that, a couple of miles, not even that. Anchor down, see what we can catch, come back in before the tide drops again. So it's coming up at the moment, we can get out through here, then it's going to start dropping, and then you have to get back in, otherwise you're out there for another 12 hours. And the wind's coming up horrendous this afternoon, so it's going to be windy out there anyway. I've no idea what's going to happen with the microphone, and fingers crossed we'll get a fish for you guys. Tomo's thinking of. So what are you thinking of, Tomo? What's your plan of action?
My plan of action, little top of the tide trip. It's quite a short trip we're doing. So going to head to a mark that's a very, very mixed mark, so a bit of a hedge your bets. I've got baits that are going to hopefully catch our smooth hounds. We've got some rays out there, eels. There's been a few hass. There'll be dogfish. Just so hopefully a few hours where we can just nip out, have a nice little session, busy session, and then get our way back in.
And no long runs, so you get bait in the water time, mate. Actually, in 4 hours you can get 3 3/4,
Yeah,
3.5 hours or something.
Yeah, it's a great thing about fishing out of Watch It here. The fish come so close to the marina, and this really is a case of throttle on, throttle off, drop the anchor, and get the baits out there and get fishing.
Fingers crossed. What sort of depth, Ty?
We're going to be fishing in, I suppose, like 12, 13 metres, that sort of depth. It's quite a small tide today, so we'll drop anchor. The tide will come in a little bit more than that, but yeah, by Bristol Channel standards, it's quite a small tide today, so we're not going to be in any ripping tide. It'll be very, very comfortable fishing.
So grip leads, and I might even drop one down tide, you know, sort of 12 ounces, 8 ounces, something like that down
yeah,
tide.
that's all you need. 8 ounces will be absolutely fine.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
And the weather, hearing that, the squelch there, is that because he's got blasted by the wind coming up this afternoon?
Yeah, I was going to say, it's supposedly summer, but I've got my salopettes back on. I have no doubt when we get out there I might even have to put my woolly hat on for a little bit. It's yeah, it's not been shorts and t-shirt weather recently.
No, it's been bizarre, and it has been bizarre. So the wind at the moment, so guys know here, watch, it's offshore, so southerly, it's relatively flat out there.
Yeah, it should be pretty flat. It is southerly. You know, even come the end of our trip, it might be blowing fairly strong, but it is all off the land. Another good thing about our fishing is it being quite close to shore. We're going to be very, very sheltered, and certainly from a southerly direction, it can almost blow as hard as it wants, and yeah, the sea's going to be pretty flat still.
Now I know some people don't like going on long wrecking trips and that because, you know, A, seasick, B, a little bit of boredom there. Just a rough guide, 10 minutes running time, just so people know from the harbour?
5.
5.
Yeah, we're going to do 5 on this one.
5 minutes.
Yeah.
Guys, you go 5 minutes from the harbour. So if you do get seasick, we're not saying you can't be seasick. Anybody can be seasick, but you know you've got the option there. Within 5 minutes, the anchor's down. So it's another good reason for coming to watch it. The boat that no one would steal.
No.
Yeah, you can see the handiness of that little pole.
Yeah, brilliant. Especially like, you know, tide's ripping, the wind's blowing.
Yeah.
I just drive straight onto it, stop.
Yeah.
I can do it all myself. I'm not having to reach.
Yeah, you've got a routine now, I can see that.
Yeah. Okay, so baits we've got today, probably 3 of the very, very best baits at this time of year out of Watch It. We've got good old squid, we've got some prawns, and then we've got some frozen peeler crab here. Smoothhounds love the crab. We've got the smoothhounds about, so that's why I bought a few crab. They love prawn, they love squid as well. But pretty much everything going will take either squid or prawn. So hopefully between these 3 baits, we're going to manage to boat a few nice fish. And then on one of the other baits I'm going to use, I'm actually going to use the frozen peeler crab here. Now I know you can buy live frozen. You can buy live crab as well. Frozen peeler is a great option. You can keep that ready to go. You can buy it in packets of 3, 4, 5, whatever you want. So a nice little handy stash you can just grab out each time you have a session. Now, people do struggle with crab sometimes. It's one of the things I get asked about most of all on the boat is how do I put the crab on? With the peeler crab, you see some of these have still got their shells. If I find one with a shell on, what you're gonna do is just peel the top shell off. It'll come off. There we go, like that. Okay, now it depends on the size of your crab a little bit. You can leave the legs on, or if you want a little bit of a smaller bait, you can take the legs off one side or both sides, depending on the size of the crab. I'm actually going to take the legs off one side of this crab. And the only reason for that is I generally find that smoothhounds don't take a particularly big bait. Anyway, and then once you've got to this stage, there is more shell. You don't need to be taking any more shell off. All you're just trying to do is get it to a stage where it's a little bit softer. And then the biggest tip I can give you is at this stage, start getting some elastic on now. You're just going to create a bit of a crab sausage, basically. I give it a little bit of a squish, take my elastic, and then just wrap it up. Go to town with the elastic, use loads of it. And all you're trying to do is give that soft, mushy bit of crab, almost like a little bit of integrity, really. So you're going to create your crab sausage, break the elastic. No need to knot elastic, you just break it and it'll grip onto itself. Once you've done that, bring the hook across to your bait, and all you're going to do is now just nick the hook in and out of the crab, hold it in place with your thumb, more elastic, bring that back to the bait, firmly to the shank of the hook. Use plenty of elastic at the top of the bait. That's the bit of the bait that's going to catch the tide as the tide's running by, if there's any bit sticking out. So squash that on. Again, break your elastic off. Again, no need to knot it. And there you have a really nicely presented peeler crab.
Well, you would think on a boat in the Bristol Channel you'd be uptide, but look at Tomo, he is just lobbing it down tide on a couple of multipliers. So you don't always have to cast up tide. You can select your weight according to the tide and bounce down with it. And here you go, Tomo's straight into a fish.
Graeme hasn't even managed to get a bait in the water
I couldn't even get
and
it.
I've got my first fish on.
Yeah, exactly, no question that. I wouldn't want to say that was 2 minutes, Tomo, to be honest. Well, you can see there, I'm going to have to do voiceover because it's windy as heck. And there's a nice smoothhound for Tomo. Now, I think recently I saw on his Facebook page they had, wait for this, over 70 smoothhounds on one trip. I'm sure, I may be wrong. I apologise if I am, but I don't think I am. I think it was 70 or 72 in one trip, which is phenomenal. And yes, another fish is on. I still can't get my head around how so many fish are in water as coloured as that. There are absolutely loads of them in there. It must be, I don't know, I feel way up in the Bristol Channel, something like perhaps a nursery area, I don't know. Or do they come in there for all the crabs and other food? I mean, it looks like basically with Tomo going flat out here, I might just as well just take up filming and not even bother with fishing. But it was great to see action from the off. And listen, all fishermen know, you need that early bite or two to give you a bit of confidence, to instill some confidence in you in the trip. There's nothing worse than waiting, you know, and you don't get any nibbles. I never mind personally if I get small bites, because I figure even if small bites, even if you get dogfish, it just tells me that there is action down there. And here you go, Tomo's got a nice ray on this time. Plenty of rays down there. I mean, I would say the prime species down there on Tomo's boat, out of watch it, is rays and smoothhounds. But of course you can get congers, you get bass. When it's good conditions, they can run down the channel and get really good tote fishing, unhook with a T-bar, and you can see a sort of muddy colour to them because they got all that silt from the Bristol Channel, so I suppose that must colour them up somewhat. So very nice thornback. And do you know what? I don't think I rarely see a fish kept on Tomo's boat. Most of them go back, which is good, because if you want good sport for the future, you do have to, you know, look after it and not exactly go harvesting them. Oh goodness me, what a surprise, I've actually got a bite. Now these rods I'm using, just so guys know, no, we're not selling them. They are a Nomura popping rod, and I've been really pleased with them actually, I've got to say. You know, they're meant for like tuna fishing, I get it, you know, I've done the tuna popping, but at the end of the day, it's a fishing rod, isn't it? It's a fishing rod designed for casting and throwing big lures. So consequently you can use this for uptiding, and you can throw 5-6 ounce leads with this quite a long way, a very long way. So we're just waiting to see what comes up here through that coloured water. Look how close to shore we're fishing. My goodness me. I don't even think it's a mile, it looks like half a mile. Here comes another nice smoothhound in the net. Great fishing, I have to say. So there you go, thanks to Tomo's guidance, got a nice big smoothhound there. That one was on the crab. I put a lighter lead on, it's a bit heavy the lead, not what I thought of first, but well pleased with that one. Yeah. Well, he's just hooked, Tomo.
Yeah, only just slightly hooked. So this is my third species for me, just a little conger eel. We've got loads of eels out here, ranging from sort of little tiddlers like this up to you know, eels that'll go, you know, over 30 pounds, sometimes 40. So not huge by conger eel standards, but you know, catch an eel in quite shallow waters. They do fight hard, and yeah, just a bit more sport to the day.
Now, while Tomo does use standard down tide, and to be honest, I do as well. I've got a grip wire, nose grip wire lead on there with light springs, so it doesn't break out. If a fish goes down current, it's still dragging and holding a hook in, so that's quite good. You can put the bait onto the bend of the hook like that. See, there's a nice crab going out there. Because if you've got a long trace, it's difficult to cast, isn't it? And I go right up the bow, out the way. I can swing it across the bow, punch it out with that popping rod. It either disengages in the air or on impact, and then leave the bail arm open, walk down the side of the boat, and, you know, let a belly of line out, let plenty of line loose, and then put it in gear with the drag on, and just sit and await events. So it's doggies and smoothhounds. Tomo's had that ray, conger, so it's mixed bags. You can see the wind is howling up the front because I've just been casting up there. Tomo, you're out on the water probably more than anybody I know really, so do you think there's anything noticeable regarding the wind and the changing conditions? Do you think there's something in it? Because I know there's non-believers out there, I get that, but to me there is definitely something changeable just from my own fishing experiences.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, people talk about you know, how windy has it been over the winter, and I mean, never mind the winter, it's been windy for 2 years. I wouldn't like sort of say the percentage wise in terms of trips that I have to kind of like do this, but I spend probably more than 3/4 of my time now fishing where the wind will let me, and not always where my sort of first choice would be. It's very hard to think back over the last 2 years and remember a really settled period of weather. And I know the winter that's just gone, it's not just been the case that we've had our traditional strong sort of southwesterlies blowing. The wind's been coming from all directions. You'll get a day where it's strong from the north, and the next day it will be east-southeast, and then the day after that is westerly, and it makes it very mixed up, but it does affect the fishing. Sometimes it can make the fishing a little bit patchy. You'll get a spot where you know, it sort of fishes really well, and you kind of expect you're going to get a whole tide out of it, but it'll fish well for a day, 2 days, and then the weather pattern completely changes, and then that spot isn't what it was, and you're off hunting for a new spot.
Do you think that the high and low pressure business that does affect the fishing and tides?
Yeah, it does. It has like particularly high pressure. Air pressure is the most incredible force, and like air pressure, because we can't feel air pressure ourselves, but to think out here in the Bristol Channel, where we know the tides are incredibly fast, and we talk about the power of water, and people appreciate the power of water, but to think that high air pressure can delay the tide by sort of up to half an hour and hold that height of water down by 20-30 centimeters is phenomenal. And to then kind of start to think about that from a fishing term, and you then start to think, well, okay, on some of the really high air pressure days, fishing can be a little bit tricky sometimes,
even though the weather's good, because
yeah,
high pressure.
That's the little sort of almost like caveat with it, is those days where you have really high air pressure are normally the days when the sea is like glass, the blue sky is all around us, the sun's out, and for us it's the most picture perfect day. As a charter skipper though, I'm starting to think that this might be a little bit tricky, yeah, inevitably we can have good days during high pressure, but it can be a challenge at times. Whereas when we have low pressure, that doesn't really seem to be the same. You know, the wind blows, and you know, we might get a bit of a chop on the water, but quite often the fish can feed very, very well when it's low pressure. So as to the actual effect it's having on the fish, I don't know. I don't understand that, but it's very obvious that really high air pressure can make the fishing a challenge.
Well, I had an absolute scream of a run. Great battle with the fish, and you can see I'm using my beach reels here, guys. I'm just using my beach reels because I can cast away from the boat. I don't have to. A real spanker of a smooth hound here. So I said, Tomo, that's a nice fish, Tomo. I said, I reckon that goes at least 10 pounds. He said, well, it's worth weighing, and I'm never really bothered too much about weighing, but he said, you'll be doing yourself out of a weight of 10 pounds. I also take the leads off, trying to get in that habit now, especially when you're on somebody else's boat. You don't want to chip the gel coat. So Tomo weighs this one. Surprise, surprise, it was indeed a nice fish. Wow, that's a nice one. 14 and loose change, as they say. So there we go, that's a jumbo one for me. Biggest one I've had this year. 14 and loose change. He certainly took off well. You've only heard it with the wind in the mic, so happy with that. Let's get him back. Well, with that nice smooth hound, that was £14 4 ounces, I think it was. Under my belt, I'm up the bow again and throwing out. I'll be quite happy fishing up the bow with up tide. It doesn't really bother me if you fish down tide. Normally everybody would like fishing down tide, you know, because it's quite easy, but it's amazing how productive up tide fishing can be in sort of shallower water. Not much good, you know, down the back of Cornwall or over in the west coast of Ireland because it's too deep. But if it's shallow water, you know, under about 50 feet, 60 feet, I think it's worth doing. Make sure you back the drag off, just so that if you do get a big smooth hound, you don't lose the rod and it buckles over. And then you can see I've got a down tide rod there as well. I put a heavier lead on the down tide rod, so it's nailed to the bottom, literally underneath the boat. And, you know, very often you will pick a bonus fish up like that as well. In fact, a lot of guys are using more and more fixed spool reels, I find now. And there's Tomo binding on another bait. Well, it stays like this, it's all right, isn't it? You know?
It's all right, and actually, as the tide eases, the wind's going to be off our back and we're going to be sheltered here.
The thing is, with Tomo's boat, you've got plenty of space. So, you know, if you want to do casting, you can do casting, just ask. And it really it's a courtesy with the skippers. Don't just assume you can do up tiding. Oh, that might be a bite, Graeme. Just before the rod goes over the side. You can see what I mean. They're really good, these rods. And there's a double up with Tomo on a fish as well. So 2 at once. Yeah, always ask skippers on boat. Don't just assume you can go up tide casting, because you need to ask the skipper first. Some skippers, I believe, you know, say no up tiding when there's a big group. The less people on the boat, that's a doggo for Tomo. He's in the running for the Dogfish Trophy as well. I'm sure I'll be winning it. If you ask the skipper, I'm sure he'll let you know, and generally they say do it up the front so you don't get tangled. Ironically, Tomo is on mono and I'm on braid, and that's purely because they're my pike fishing reel and also my beach casting reels. I use the same thing, 50 to 60 pound sidewinder braid. That's all I use. It's good. It's been on there about 2 years now and still going strong. And you can see the action on these rods. I mean, you can really buckle them over. Obviously the top half goes over because it is a casting rod, and then you've got plenty of beef in the bottom end of the section. But you know, I've been well happy with them. I like the pretty blue colour as well. Quite into my blue colours, that's why I had a yellow boat, and another smooth hound comes over the side. Great scrapping fish. And like a lot of smooth hounds, they should really all go back. There's something on the down tide rod. Now this was nailed down. Say I'm fishing with 6 ounce grip leads casting away from the boat. Well, then to nail it down in a bigger tide, I'd use about a pound of lead, so it stays straight underneath the boat and doesn't therefore get tangled up. But this looks like quite a lump. Again, it's just an average type casting rod, this one. It doubles up as a fishing rod at sea as well.
Yeah, I was wondering if it's blonde ray.
Zoomed off. I sort of consider flaps where he's coming on. As you can see, you know, it's almost sure to be a ray because it's fairly inactive and like a heavy weight in the tide. Just ease it in towards the net. Tomo can get the net there. You've got quite a high gunnel, swing it over and it can be unhooked. But you know, I am getting in the habit, look, I'm taking that lead off. There's a nice thornback ray. That's a bonus for me. Wasn't really expecting. They get small rays, but I think they get spotted rays. Get some big blonde rays down there. Yes, even close to shore like that. Very big blonde rays. You can see how close, you know, you see how it's on the land. It's very close. I don't even think it's a mile, to be honest. Barely 5 minutes running time in the Lorna Doone. Stop, anchor down, switch the engine off, cast out. So even on a short over the tide trip, you actually get some good fishing time there. It looks like I'm getting something running off here as well. Makes a change for GP to catch a few fish. Yep. So Tomo, you mentioned early on, and I know when I've been shore fishing, the guys say don't make your baits too big for smooth hounds, Graeme. Is that true on the boat as well?
Yeah, it's really, you know, it is probably the #1 tip that I give to people with smooth hound fishing. Smooth hounds got really small mouths, and I sometimes get people arrive on the boat who've been to collect their own crab. Hardback crabs is a great bait for smooth hounds. What some people do is they'll turn up with really big hardback crabs with it in their mind that big bait means big fish.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
But it just doesn't work for smooth hounds. Sometimes all the sort of little crabs that they've thrown back, those are the crabs, the best crabs for the smooth hounds.
Like the one on your rod there, banging away, was it? Or is that?
I can't remember what bait's on that one at the moment, actually. But yeah, so yeah, do not make your crab baits too big for smooth hounds.
Well, as the tide eased, so the wind took over, and as you can see now, I'm looking at the other side up towards Minehead. Watch, it is just in there. The harbour's just literally in where I'm pointing. You know, you probably almost see people fishing off the pier there as well. So it's that close. But unfortunately, when boats start swinging around at anchor, even when I had my own boat, it was a bit of a nightmare. It tends to, if you're fishing over sketchy ground, drag you into the snags more than anything. You get tangled lines, the fish go off the feed a bit. It's generally a sort of dead period of slow water movement, and of course, if it's nothing else coming, then the dogfish move in. Now, the way to unhook dogfish, stand away, is to bend the tail round, hold the head in your left hand, and take the hook out as easy as that. How easy was that? It saves you using pliers, and of course I've given away my bait, my secret dogfish bait. It was half of an Atlantic unpeeled, unwashed prawn. And Tomo's guess he's on about 8 ounces lead there, no more, and that's enough to hold the bottom. So there you go, good little piece of action. So glad I slept in the car, which got me to the pier on time, as it were, or the marina, and I could get out on the sea, which I had been missing. Well, that's some interesting fishing, certainly productive considering we were only on the water barely 3 hours, and in that gale of wind, unpleasant for the microphone, but not unpleasant on the water because it was pretty flat. Anyway, moving on, I went up to a bushcraft show to help Mike out on his stand up there for TA Outdoors. While I was there, I managed to check out somebody who specialises in very, very sharp knives. Is bushcraft knives. So we're going to talk with Woodland Blades about some of the basics of the knives and how they're built, because there's some beautiful knives here.
So what have we got here? We have got a typical bushcraft knife of a specific description. This is a model I know as the Leshy. I designed this knife to be great for carving, woodwork. You know, you can take a piece of hazel, you can make a point very easily, you can carve a spoon with it, you can carve notches.
Now listen, the first thing is, bring that up here a little bit, I want to see here. Guys, notice how he's pushing with his thumb. Now I'm not going to be doing that, I'm going to be forcing with my main hand, which is not the way to do it then. This is the way to do it, when you do that downward stroke.
It's much safer and much controlled, and you can quite easily make something that's very useful with very little effort.
I figure that's A, sharp, and B, a very good tip, just using that thumb that you're holding the wood on.
Exactly. Oh, they are incredibly sharp, Graham. These are, you know, a sharp knife is safer than a dull knife, and a razor sharp knife is even better than that.
Now steel, and this is what you call a full tang?
This is a full tang, so the tang, so the metal blade is made from, the tang runs all the way through the handle and around and is secured on by mechanical fastenings known as loveless bolts. The steel for this is a high-end surgical stainless steel. I find it's the best thing for a UK environment as it keeps an edge nice and sharp, it's very strong and it's easy to sharpen.
How would you sharpen those? On a stone, or do they use a file, not knowing?
Most of the time, all you need,
keep them up there, that's it. Yeah,
is a leather strop with a bit of honing compound on it.
Which would be, what would you call that?
Any kind of abrasive, so Autosol.
Yeah.
Works well. There are also more specialist abrasives used, and you can just strop the knife like that. If you do that little and often regularly, then your knife will stay razor sharp and you shouldn't have to worry about taking it to
Is
stone.
that it? That's all you need to keep to upgrade that?
So I've had my personal knives for about a year. I use them all the time and I mostly just strop them. Occasionally you will need to take a knife to a stone. So you can find stones like this, which are diamond and ceramic stones, and these are great for removing a lot more material, or if your edge gets damaged.
Which one is the abrasive, the initial abrasive?
Oh, so
what would you start with?
We've got a diamond abrasive here, which is more coarse, and a ceramic, which is finer.
Yeah.
And then again, with a secondary stone, we have an even finer ceramic, and then a super fine ceramic. And this is great for just finishing up the last touches on your edge. And then going on the strop.
Strop's the last
Strop,
the last finishing touch.
Exactly, the strop is the finishing touch, and all we're doing is, rather than laying the bevel flat on the stone to sharpen, you'd lay the bevel flat and you'd push forward.
Yeah.
On the strop, we are doing just the opposite.
And you guys can see that, yeah. The strop seems the sort of safer of the two to me, anyway. Now, what about the other woods on some of these handles that
We have such a selection of woods here, Graham. So
is there a preference for wood, like a hardwood, or for working?
All of it would be hardwood for working, as you'd want toughness. I use stabilised wood, which is impregnated with resin, which prevents the moisture in the air, and say if you're gutting game or anything like that, soaking into the material. Another thing that you can also use is a synthetic material. So, for example, we have here an example of micarta. So this is Hessian micarta, and that is made with so Hessian, same thing as we've got on the table here,
sure,
and some resin impregnated at high pressure.
Yeah.
So that's made from the same material as this.
So you sort of, for the basic guys who are fishing boats and that, you think of how fiberglass boats are made, you know, a resin and a material.
Very similar.
Almost a similar sort of.
Very similar to fiberglass, and this, you know, this can be a very strong material for that purpose.
And then obviously a hole at the end because people want a lanyard for.
Yeah, totally. Some people want a lanyard, some people don't. So I do offer knives without a lanyard, because when you're gutting, say, a deer or something like that,
yeah,
if you get bits of blood or guts stuck in there, it can create a hygiene hazard. So we offer a bit of both. So we have a few different woods. For example, in here we've got 2 in curly birch, we have 1 in stabilised ash burl, and 1 in stabilised bird's eye maple, and then a maple up here, and then the dark one there, again, that's a micarta. So synthetic material.
So literally there's nothing between anything of the handles itself?
Oh no, just glue and potentially liners. So some people like to go for liners.
What is that?
So liners, just a layer that goes in between the metal of the handle, the tang, the wood, and you've got a blue liner. It just gives it a little highlight and just looks a little bit, you know, it makes
now
it,
that one,
it makes
I mentioned to you earlier, it's got that little curl up bit there that makes me feel a little bit safer.
God, exactly. So we quite a lot of people like to use a guard because it encourages, I guess it makes you feel like your hand's not going to slip forward.
Yes.
However, the way that
it's a
we
mental
do,
thing, isn't it? Really,
it is. But however, the way we do shape the handle will also help with that not happening. So I'm still quite confident that won't be pushing forward. You're going to be using this sort of knife for carving, whittling, all sorts of things like that.
And this is all good enough to hit for battening when you're splitting wood down.
Definitely, hailed. So we've got some knives, but we've also got some nice little paddle strops here, made by my friend over at Furlas Craft, up in the North Wales. So these are basically ideal for keeping your knife sharp. You have a bit of compound on them, and as I said, you're just dragging it backwards and forwards, and that keeps your razor edge maintained.
And while there, I also found a stand of some very interesting, I'm going to call it militaria? Is that what they call it? Well, there were bullets, badges, and I think German hand grenades. That's quite an interesting mix. Check it out. Having seen all those bullets and hand grenades and that, it's about time we used them and actually got some meat out of it. How about some deer medallions, cooked by my very fair hand, albeit covered in the squid or ragworm, cooked by my fair hand at home, and beautiful meat, unbelievably beautiful meat. Check it out. Well, I've got to tell you, that meat, I can almost taste it now. And washed down with the beer, hey ho, heaven indeed. And I think, really, congratulations must go to the gentleman that provided it. It was indeed a Muntjac Deer, and those are, I believe, the best eating deer you can get in the UK. Anybody who eats a lot of deer out there, wild deer, tell us, be interested to know. But I think Muntjac Deer is rated very highly. Thanks for watching this little episode. Fingers crossed to get some more fish in the next one. And don't forget, watch TA Outdoors as well as TA Fishing. Hit the subscribe button. And guys, don't forget to hit that notification bell thing, because at the moment I'm doubling up with 2 films a week. And if you think it's only Friday, you're missing all the Wednesday films. We'll see you next time.